I'm going to show you where each of the four major federal student loan servicers stacks up in terms of rankings. I'm going to discuss where your servicer ranks and the most common complaints that we see on each of the major federal loan servicers. Where your servicer ranks in our list might surprise you, so stay tuned and let's take a look. So first on the list is Nelnet. Now that is our top ranked servicer. And again, this is not necessarily saying that they're great. You could think about it like best of the worst. But Nelnet has the longest track record of any of the four major student loan servicers at the moment. Now, they are publicly traded, and they really have an incentive to try to hang in there. So Nelnet really does want, I think, to stick around as one of the major loan servicers. They historically have had the best customer satisfaction scores, particularly when they used to have Great Lakes as part of the four major servicers. But Nelnet subsumed Great Lakes, and now they're one entity. And so Nelnet just simply has the most experience of the servicers on the block. It doesn't necessarily mean that they are good by any means, but they historically did handle things kind of completely on their own. Now, that's no longer the case for consolidations. So Nelnet is a little bit different. The servicers are trying to be sort of moved over to studentaid.gov. Studentaid.gov wants to manage a lot more of the process for the future. So that's pretty interesting because you're going to see more and more servicers take on one single role for the entire loan portfolio is one of my predictions. And that brings us to the number 2 on the list, Aidvantage. So Aidvantage now has responsibility for all of the consolidations on the servicers list. So this is a contract that they won. So they're supposed to process the consolidations for all four of the servicers and to send, the borrower portfolios to whoever ends up the borrower where the borrower wanted to be. So Aidvantage, also is publicly traded, wants a bigger role, is clearly trying to do more for Department of Ed, to be stickier, to stick around in the process. I think that's one of the reasons why they took on the consolidations for the entire department. So interestingly enough, Aidvantage, I was very skeptical of them at first because they had no prior experience managing federal student loans, but they are owned by a company called Maximus, which has been around for decades. They got about $5 billion in revenues, according to the Wikipedia page. So Aidvantage is something that, again, we're not saying that any of these servicers is good by any stretch of the imagination, but it seems like at least initially, Aidvantage gets fewer complaints than some of the other ones on this list. Now, number 3, the reason I've got EdFinancial as the second to last in these rankings in terms of the servicers is EdFinancial is historically been a fairly small servicer, historically has not had a very large role in everything. It does not have a ton of experience managing income-driven repayment. So a lot of times the complaints that I get from people that are, viewers of this channel or, people on the blog is essentially that these folks, don't know what they're doing. That's what, again, a lot of our commenters, a lot of people share is just it feels like, in their opinion, EdFinancial just does not have a lot of experience doing the role of managing payments, managing income-driven repayment, managing forgiveness, answering, questions competently on the phone. They're based in Knoxville, Tennessee, a little bit of a smaller area to draw on for talent. Again, no hate on Knoxville or anything. It's just more of a regional player. It's something that has not really taken on a massive role before for student loans. So this is just an interesting choice that they made. If I had to guess, I think right around the time that these contracts were being negotiated, the ranking chair of the Senate Education Committee, I believe, I know he was from Tennessee. He might have lived in Knoxville. I'm not sure. But, certainly the allocation decisions of these servicer contracts has raised a lot of questions, right? But EdFinancial was ultimately chosen as one of the big four. And, so that's one of the ones they went with. And, again, they have lagged behind the other ones in terms of total borrower accounts for whatever reason. So, Department of Ed is trying to get more borrower accounts to EdFinancial to try to bring them up to a similar volume of loans serviced compared to the other 3. And then 4th on the list is MOHELA. Now, the reason I've got MOHELA in the last place is just simply because of a survey that we did of our audience. We asked, thousands of readers, what is your, what are your servicer? What do you think of your servicer? And MOHELA was dead last on that list. Now, I do think that a portion of that reason, a part of that reason is because any servicer that manages the PSLF program is going to really struggle. And MOHELA was assigned to manage the PSLF program as the interim servicer before it was all moved over to studentaid.gov. And, predictably, they had a really hard time. MOHELA managed the PSLF program on a back-end process called Compass, which is the same system that was owned by FIA, which is Fed loan servicing, right? And so everybody remembers Fed loan servicing that has had loans for a long period of time at least, and they were the worst rated back in the day because of how much frustration they were caused to public service borrowers. And predictably, MOHELA has also caused lots of frustrations, according to our survey, for PSLF borrowers. Now, one interesting thing to note, MOHELA no longer is responsible for public service loan forgiveness. That responsibility has been transferred to the Department of Education. So a big question mark here is going to be, will MOHELA improve in these rankings? Will customers complain about them less now that MOHELA is not responsible for the PSLF program? They are a not-for-profit servicer, meaning that they do not have shareholders that they're answering to. Now, technically, they're an instrumentality in Missouri, which a lot of people know because of Biden v. Nebraska, where the Supreme Court found that MOHELA was an instrumentality in Missouri, which gave Missouri a standing to sue on behalf of MOHELA to block cancellation. So a lot of people really dislike MOHELA because of that. I will say this, if you dislike MOHELA because of the cancellation case, that's certainly, you're right. I will say, though, that the leaders of MOHELA had nothing to do with that case. The people at MOHELA, that are just the career employees of MOHELA, they, are not people that are, super ideological. They're just trying to do their job. Now, in terms of the incentive structure, a not-for-profit servicer, interestingly enough, seemingly has a lot more, struggles with customer complaints and things like that some of these other ones that happen to be publicly traded. I don't necessarily think that that's just because they're publicly traded versus not-for-profit, but I just think that this is kind of how it shaked out, and I think that the responsibility of PSLF really overwhelmed MOHELA and set them back in these rankings, trying to catch up and deliver better customer service. So what do you think of these rankings? Do you think I got it totally wrong? Do you think that your servicer is much worse? I'd love to hear it in the comments. Also, if you want to download our IDR calculator that helps you model your payments and minimize your payments and interest, you can look at that in the description. And I would love to hear your thoughts. What do you think of the student loan servicers? What do you think of these rankings? What has been your biggest frustration from your student loan servicers? If you want to share, put it in the comments, and thank you so much for watching.